All right, so Ben, what we're going to do now is that I'm going to show you how this beautiful Dutch Stonewall business works. And first, I'm going to show you the most famous game that was ever played in the history of chess in this opening, which is going to be No Die Classics episode, whatever, Glucksberg and Najdorf. I'm going to skip a lot of things in it. I am going to show you a lot of things that I normally would make you solve and struggle through, but we simply do not have time. So yeah, and I'm not going to repeat that all the time as an excuse, but this is what it is. The first thing that I want you to note is that this e3 setup is less effective than the double fianchetto, because once the bishop lands on d3 and you stick a knight on e4, the situation is going to be such that they can never take, because when you retake, it's a fork and you just want a piece.
Yeah.
Whereas taking with the bishop is very undesired because it's a bishop and we prefer bishops to knights, and two, it's the better bishop. This one obviously is restricted by the white pawns. And so bishop d3...
How does...
Sorry, come again?
So I was just going to ask about the fact that it's a reasonably closed setup, and like, how do you, in this kind of structure, how are we judging knights versus bishops?
Okay, so fair point, and you could argue that it's iffy still. So generally speaking, if a structure is somewhat fluid, meaning it still has a solid chance to blow up, you still lean toward the bishops. And this position is not clogged up enough to clearly
because we've got
claim.
the C.
Partly
C4
because
pawn, like...
Look, I'm going to play stupid things, but I want you to see this. So because of this pawn break is completely on the cards, this position can still completely explode, and pawns disappear in abundance, and the bishops all of a sudden become total bosses. All the moves I displayed are total garbage by white.
That's fine, yeah, but I get the point, yeah.
But the concept is that, now compare that, by the way, if instead of f3, I go f4. Right now, blowing this up is becoming increasingly more and more difficult. Yeah, now
even if
I
C takes
add
D, then
c5,
D takes D.
And now really we are at the point where we go like, hold on a tick, this is clogged up as hell.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the story. Okay, so let's go with the game, because this is something else, man. So, Glucksberg went backwards, and we already know that that's not how we play chess. 97 could move. You see that the piece pattern, the layout, is identical to what I showed you. Knight g5. This is what we call playing for stupid cheapies. But I tell you the reason why he did that. He thought that black would defend the pawn with either queen moves, and then he could clog up exactly how I told you. So he wanted to have a very, very safe game where, you know, the attack would be thwarted by this f4 pawn move, and then the knight would go back and then jump on e5, and it would be very symmetrical, very drawish. Obviously, we are talking about a player with the white pieces who was a nobody compared to Najdorf. The issue is that this is a loose piece.
Yeah, you can just move the knight.
And there is this very famous abbreviation that every chess player knows, because it's the dumbest that any chess player would have ever invented. It's John Nunn's axiom, which is LPDO, which means absolutely nothing other than loose pieces drop off. And the old facial expression is exactly the right response to this nonsense, because why would you remember that? And yet I can guarantee you that an English-speaking chess player, if you go tell them LPDO, they will be like, oh yeah, loose pieces drop off. And you go like, how? Like, why? Like, you know, when you learn first aid, and then the first aid is the ABC, the airways, the breathing, I don't even know what the C stands for anymore.
Something.
But, you know, like you go like, oh yeah, ABC is like the alphabet, so they make sense. And then you do the ABC, airways, breathing. What is C? It's so embarrassing.
Circulation?
Yeah, I think so. Probably circulation. Maybe. I hope so. Anyway, so you get the gist, right?
Your heart's beating. That's probably the thing.
But with LPDO, it's like, Jesus, man. Like, how long did it take for you to come up with the worst abbreviation of all times? And yet, once again, it's like chess players swear by it. Like, everyone knows that stuff. It's
Yeah, it's
insane.
crazy.
By the way, John Nunn is a genius. He has got brilliant chess books, and he's a grandmaster at playing. He's a grandmaster at solving. You know, oh, you are a Pommy guy. You would appreciate this trivia. John Nunn beat a 500-year-old record by being the youngest student to be taken into Oxford at the age of 15.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think I heard about that. He was like a polymath, wasn't he? He just did everything.
He was like through the roof in maths.
Yeah,
And in
wow.
chess too, by the
Impressive.
way. He made it to very, very high.
Was he the guy who, like Magnus Carlsen said, like he just was wasted on
Yes,
chess?
exactly. Yeah,
Or like
yeah, exactly. He wasted his life.
like he was just too good. He was just too
smart.
clever, and
Yes,
he could just do anything.
exactly. And he became a puzzle-solving world champion and grandmaster, a regular grandmaster in chess. So he has got his accolades like everywhere. Anyway, so loose pieces drop off. So we go checks because check captures threats is our god. And after king takes knight g4, tada, we have proven our opponent to be very silly.
Yeah, nice.
Stock standard. This is what we also happen to call the Greek gift, but you know that already, so I don't need to tell you that. Just note that, like, yes, boss. Yes, boss.
I did know that. I wouldn't be able to. I know the Greek gift is like giving up the bishop for the H or A pawn. But
now, Glucksberg actually played king h1 instead of taking, because he had an agenda, which was this move, with which he was hoping to defend the knight and also lock the bishop in. Quite clever, you would think, but only good enough for losing them. Oh, careful, 96 is threatened.
Of course. Yeah.
So hence queen e8, defending the pawn and coming for the Matutsky. And now he came up with the second part of the devious plan, which was to put the king here and the rook around and avoid all kinds of mate threats and eventually munch the bishop. But after queen h5, when he played king g2 with the idea of rook h1, good old Najdorf went like, I don't think you will go to h1 because I'm going to play the sexiest move on the board, putting my bishop on prey by 3 different pieces.
That's nice.
But I do not recommend you to take with king because that's mate in 1. I do not recommend you to take with the rook because that's mate in 2. And I also do not recommend you to take with the knight because then you are going to lose the most famous game that was ever played in the Dutch Stonewall. And that went like this. Queen h2, king f3. Now I'm going to ask a question here. Try not to look on the panel, which you can see.
I'm not looking on the panel, but yeah.
What do you think, Ben, is the sexiest move here by black with the intention of trying to bring more attackers toward the white king? I'm going to give you
I want to play knight e5 just because it does what you were asking before, which is it can easily be taken by everything, and it's a check.
You are 98% correct. So the idea is to play knight e5. The problem is that there are too many to take it.
Okay, then maybe push e5 first.
So good, baby. So good. E5.
It's only because I know what you'd like. I know what you want. What you'd want to see on the board.
Now there is a very great logic, by the way, to this, and it applies to tactics and attacking chess in general. There is a phenomenon in chess that the most beautiful sacrifices, breakthroughs, the types of moves that wreck the position, they almost always tend to happen on the most fortified square. And there is not really a logical explanation as to why that is, other than the fact that if you can break your opponent on the most fortified spot, then you can imagine how weak the rest is. If you can break it where they are best, suited to defend it, then imagine the rest. And that's exactly...
And I guess they're putting their pieces... They feel safe on squares that can't be attacked from their fortified squares.
But see,
they're like, side, you can't get there, but the knight can get there.
Yeah. The other side of this coin is that this is exactly why 98% of the people don't find it. It's because they don't even look at this because it looks so hopeless. Whereas...
Yeah, I've watched enough of your videos to know I should be looking at the random queen check that loses the queen and then...
Yeah, because the flip side of the coin is that, in my opinion, it doesn't look hopeless. It looks bloody amazing and beautiful and exciting. Because if it works, then we are going to be in the chess history books forever. So that's the first thing I look at, because boy, if it works, everybody in the tournament hall will be watching my game for sure. And tell you what, I do like that stuff. I like entertaining the crowds for sure. So did good old Miguel. Take. So now we are 2 pieces down, but the enemy king is walking further and further out. Now this is what we call a king hunt in the biz, when the opponent's king is coming way too far out from safe shelter. And the number one rule in that situation and that circumstance is that the further you can force the king out, the more likely you're gonna mate it.
Yeah. There's an amazing video I saw of Aman Hambleton pulling a king out in like a bullet
I
game
remember
or a
that.
blitz game.
Yeah, that's Queen F. Actually,
he like sacrifices a knight. The king comes out. He sacrifices a bishop. The king comes out and he's like, I've got you now. It's just the most satisfying mate. For a blitz game, especially.
I could almost replay that game, and I think you are wrong, Ben. I think that was a bullet game.
Was it a bullet game?
I think
even
it was.
then.
It's like the Queen
I thought bullet originally, but I thought it can't be a bullet game.
No, I think it was.
It's too good for a bullet game.
I think it was. It's like the queen on F2 followed by a bishop on E3, and then a knight G4 was the mate. Yeah, it was insane.
And even when he does the first sack, you're like, okay, and then he takes and he does the second sack. You're like, oh my god, it's amazing.
It is next level. It is next level. Right, so he goes check, which is counterintuitive because it forces the king back instead of further out.
That's what I couldn't see that move.
But the logic, Ben, is that unfortunately we still don't have enough pieces participating in the attack. And we need this bad boy.
Okay.
How do we bring that bad boy into the attack?
Push another pawn?
Of course. So F4 once again, hanging by 7,000 pawns. So it ought to be the best move. Was played. And now the bishop is ready to join the fray. So we go check. Now that is the textbook way of luring the king out, where you go like, what? That's hanging. What's the point? Well, the point is that now we can give a check that denies the king from going back. Oh, wait, we might have blundered the knight.
I wouldn't have seen this bishop.
Oh, well, it's okay. And when the pawn takes, you now realize that the effect of the last 2 sacrifices were that we lured the king out to the open, then we opened up the f-file, so now the king has virtually no squares to go to, meaning any check is a mate. I will let you do the honors to find a mate in one, sir.
Pawn h5.
Now, there is not a lot of things that is sexier than in chess than sacking 4 minor pieces in order to deliver a pawn checkmate.
That's ridiculous. So we're in that position. If you can go back until we first made the e5 move, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, what? How far do you think? Do you think he saw all the way to pawn h5 at this point?
He might have. I would not want to say a definite yes or no. Actually, no. I'm going to say that. Would I say no? The definitely no is not in the cards. Like you can't possibly rule that out. That there is no way that he would have seen it, because there is every chance he did. But I can't tell you with hand on heart that he did. But I think it's more likely he did that than he didn't.
Okay. Because I mean, I saw pawn e5 only because I know it's a puzzle and I know we're doing, the context is always like, okay, it's easier to see. But after the knight takes and then the king move, I was like, okay, I don't really see. I only saw the pawn move because you asked me again, and like the bishop move I wouldn't have seen bishop g4. I don't think. Just like I just ruled that out too quickly. Because it's just really hard to see that bishop move, and then the knight move again. I don't think I'd have seen that. Like, okay, just keep ripping open the files, just keep get the king in this trap. It's ridiculous.
Look, the way it usually works with very good players is that it's quite likely that when they played e5, they didn't see that part of the game. However, by the time they did play e5, they had a very strong confirmation based on their chess experience and their understanding of the game that something will happen that will inevitably lead to catastrophe for white. They don't see it yet, but they have a feeling that something is gonna crack.
Yeah, and it just has to work. E5 has to work. Like it's too weak. The king's literally in the middle of the board, basically in the middle of the board. Like this is fine.
And there are signposts along the way that support them, because he already saw it. In fact, before he played e5, that at this point, if worst comes to worst, he has perpetual check. Right,
Yeah,
so
okay, 'cause
check
the king might go
is
backwards,
a draw. So I have got this escape route. Not that they would want to use it, but when you have a perpetual check in the middle of the board, that already is a testament to how few squares the opponent's king has. So then you look further and you go like, if there's a perpetual here, that means that at any given time they have one square, where they can go. Otherwise, it would be mate. So then you look further and then you explore the rest of the attack, which is no less beautiful. With f4 and then bishop g4 check, and wow, hello with this knight e5 and then pawn h5 mate. That's ridiculous. That is just,
you just sacrificed 2 pawns, like you said, on squares that were just ridiculously overprotected, and then 2 pieces as well for like nothing, and then a checkmate. Damn.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, that was great. All right, I am going